Merry Meet Annie here. This video is because I got a few emails and I think at least one response to my altar video asking me to share, if I was comfortable, the presence candle that I referred to. I think several of you picked up on the fact when I showed my presence candle, which is a little oil candle, in my case, ceramic and shaped like a mushroom, a gift from someone I love dearly. He realized that I was offering and sharing something that was very important to me. So I got a specific question on the video itself, and it came from Lucia's child, and she asked, would you be willing to elaborate on what a presence candle is? Is it similar to a need fire? So my first answer is no, it is not similar to a need fire. And for those of you who don't know what a need fire is, it is a beautiful expression of healing and power and protection, a work of magic done by many modern practitioners, and indeed it is Druid in origin, and those of you who are studying that path are probably quite familiar with a need fire. I don't know how many of the rest of you will be. In my first circle, which was a very traditional circle, we did use a need fire. We only celebrated the crossed quarter holidays. We didn't celebrate the 8, we celebrated the 4, and a need fire was always part of that celebration. A need fire is a fire of the land. It is a fire lit and then fed with the 9 sacred woods. And if you're interested in that, Google it. You'll find lots of good information out there. A need fire is a working of the earth. It may seem a working of fire, but it is indeed a working of the earth. It is calling on the power of the land to heal, to protect, to manifest a change that is needed. Usually done on behalf of community or the earth itself. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing to do. One of the good things about a need fire is it takes your magics outside of yourself. You are usually working on behalf of something that you may be part of, but is greater than you. And the 9 woods would be fed to the fire as symbols of the powers of the land, the tree itself being offered to the fire as a sacrifice to meet a magical goal of healing or protection. Beautiful, beautiful thing to do. So, a presence candle. You may see it called other things. It is sometimes, probably most often in neo-pagan books, referred to as a spirit candle. But even referred to as a spirit candle, every author has their own idea of what it is. Every practitioner probably has their own idea of what it is as they work with it. So what I'm sharing is what it is to me, which very specifically comes from my earliest training. So it is a traditional bit that I have held on to as a solitary practitioner all these years. It's also a very important part of my Coven's rite, something that we have held on to, a hinge of our rite. What is this concept of the presence? I grew up knowing it as the Dryghten. And let me spell that for you the way that I find it online the most now, so that you have a chance to Google it. There is a lot of information out there on it. It is spelled differently than it ever was when I was studying it. It was just as an example of the oral history that gets passed down from person to person. My priest was certainly teaching me what he had been taught, and the spelling had actually shifted and morphed and changed from what it had originally been. If you want to Google it, you want to look up D-R-Y-G-H-T-E-N. There's lots of pronunciations to it too. I, in my first circle, learned it as Dryghten, so Dryghten is what it is to me. So what is this concept of the Dryghten? We know on our altars that we have candles that we light to the god and the goddess. In my case, the god and the goddess of Wicca. So what does this extra candle mean? And how do we use it when? In my rituals, ritual is begun and ended with the lighting and the extinguishing of the presence candle, the Dryghten candle. The Dryghten, for those of us who are old school Wicca, who were almost always pantheists, when we get into that discussion of, in modern Wiccanry, are we polytheists or duotheists or panentheists, all the theists that we can be. When I was being trained early on, we were pantheists. we saw that the universe was the divine. The entirety, the wholeness of creation was the divine. And the god and the goddess of the Wicca were the two faces we gave to the divine. Now, we didn't see them just as archetype. We believed that they had been believed into being, and that within each of their two beings were facets of that huge unknowable wholeness that we could not conceive of. But as we came to develop our relationship with our God and our goddess, we deepened our understanding of aspects of that wholeness. The Dryghten would be that wholeness, the entirety of existence. In a way, what everything comes from and what everything returns to. However, in the study of the Dryghten, which we took on for a long, long time at the feet of our elders in my first circle, it's not the creative force of the universe. It is, in a sense, stolen from the theories of Aristotle, but a limited stealing from the theories and philosophies that Aristotle put forth as what he called the prime mover. Now, if you go off to Google prime mover, if you're not familiar with it, you will find it very, very interesting. But please understand that what came to me in my first circles wasn't that sophisticated entirety of his concept of what the prime mover was. It was a more simplistic understanding, a way of explaining that before all that is, there was. There was. And what was not the creative force, it simply was. Nothing came before it. So it wasn't the product of creation, it simply was. And in the old ways I was taught, the forces of life, love and strife, were born of that. And that is indeed what we gave the face to of God and Goddess. But the entirety, the sum of everything that is greater than all of those parts, we saw as what is sometimes referred to as mystery. The thing which we cannot ever understand in its entirety. Yes, we can understand parts of it, and we grow in our lives through understanding more and more parts of it. At the same time, understanding how much we will never know of it. So in a sense, it connects to the word mystery, that which is not knowable. Now, there are things written about Gerald Gardner, and as you know, that was my training. I come from a Gardnerian tradition where he acknowledged the existence of the Dryghten, but said we make little of it. And that has been misinterpreted. That has totally been misinterpreted. When Gerald said we make little of it, he didn't mean that it didn't matter. He was again referring to the immenseness of it and our inability to be able to comprehend the immenseness of it. And he was referring to the fact that within our circles, we don't spend a lot of time trying to make real mystery, because we know it is unknowable. We acknowledge it. And when Gerald said we make a little of it, he meant that we acknowledge it, but we focus on the things we can grasp and learn and grow from. Specifically, our relationship to the Lord and the Lady of the Wicca. So, we light the presence candle. And in the process of doing that, we are acknowledging the vastness of the universe. And we are in a way acknowledging everything we don't understand. Our ritual then becomes an expression of what the goddess promised us in the charge, which is that she would reveal to us things that are unknown. So our ritual is the expression of exploring aspects of mystery as we are able to conceive them. Honoring presence at the beginning is a way of opening up the vastness of what exists and acknowledging it's huger than what we experience in our small little cosmology of the ritual. We offer that presence acknowledgement at the beginning of our rituals as that opening up, you could say, to possibility, to mystery, to what is greater than the sum of everything that we know or could possibly conceive of. Now, within the structure of a ritual, what that means is everybody who's in that circle could have a completely different idea of what the Drayton is. because we are encouraged in traditional Wicca to develop our own relationship to mystery. We go within ourselves and do the work to know what is it for us. Acknowledge at the beginning of ritual and at the end of ritual, but not something that is part of the ritual in a specific sense. The way it's part of the ritual is what each covenor, each person in the circle feels as a relationship to it internally. Someone had asked a question, is it the same thing as Akasha? Not in my knowing of it. It may be to someone else. Their perception of what this thing that was before everything was might be Akasha. Akasha to me is more the collected wisdom of existence, where the Dryghten is more the ground from which everything rose, not in a sense of wisdom, or even in a sense of creation. It wasn't the thing which created, it was the thing which was. It is a concept you'll embrace or you will not embrace. You may embrace it as mystery, the unknowable, what you always seek to know, an acknowledgement in your ritual as you begin. How beautiful and vast is the experience of being present and part of. And the great comfort in our pagan spirituality is we don't have to know it all. We don't have to know the answers. Our entire spiritual path is exploration of discovering the things that reveal themselves to us. It is never that we can be told or will discover on our own what everything is. So we light the presence candle at the beginning of a ritual. So it is not the working candle. Here I have put a sample of a working candle, which is always lit on my altar before ritual starts. Lighting the ritual candle to me is housekeeping. It is part of making sure everything I need is on my altar and everything I need for the working I'm about to do is at hand. And then it comes the time that I have settled down and I'm ready to begin my ritual. Now I do want to say, different practitioners, even within my own tradition, honor presence at different times. I have always honored it at the very beginning, before anything else is done in ritual, but you will see it done in the honoring of God and Goddess and the old ones. In that part of the ritual, there are different flows for different groups that have decided to put it in different places. I was trained. It is something we start and end with. In a way, a symbol of what the mystery of the Drayton is. Now, Patricia Crowther shared a version of the Drayton Prayer in one of her books, and it is probably the one that Doreen Valiente wrote. So Patricia was probably taking it, if not word for word, very close to the version that Doreen wrote for those early Gardnerian circles. My version of it is a little different. And why is it a little different? Just as my version of the charge is different than what we see in books as the original, it is because these things were passed from person to person verbally, and there were changes in them over time. So the presence call, the Drayton Prayer that I know, is a little bit different than the one that you will see in some books, but you'll recognize it if you know it. Mine goes, in the name of that most ancient presence, which was, is, and ever shall be, male, female, all-knowing, all-powerful, and ever-present, and in the name of the ancient ones, those who have gone before, who guide and protect us, and in the name of the four mighty ones, the rulers of the element, let power and blessing descend at this hour upon this place and in our hearts. So if I have any truly deeply traditional practitioners watching this, you know those are pretty modern words. They came out of the circles of the 70s here in the States. They are slightly different than the version that Patricia reported, which is probably the one written by Doreen. So I will end this video with that version, which is beautiful, very beautiful. I don't use it. I use the one that I was taught out of respect and love for those who taught me. So what else is there about this concept of the Drayton, or the presence candle? Additionally, I would say that it is to many of us whatever we conceive the fifth element to be. When we bring the energy of all of the elements into our circle as part of our rite, we are then creating what rises out of them, which is greater than any of them individually, the sum of their parts. And we often think of that as where things come from and where things return. We all have our relationship to what the fifth element might be. The presence candle in my tradition honors that the fifth element is there. We are surrounded by it. It is a part of our experience in circle. So we do start off our circles by acknowledging it, and we do end our circles by extinguishing silently. My tradition has not had words to say farewell to the presence candle. There is no point to saying farewell. It is always there. We welcome it with the Drayton Prayer at the beginning, the presence call. With a little bit of an interruption as I went and hushed a min pin, who you probably heard barking in the background. The presence candle, what it might mean to us. Some see it as the fifth element. I don't have a problem with envisioning it that way, because that fifth element to me isn't something that comes and goes. It is something that is always, it is present. It's also an aspect of mystery. So you could say it does represent that to me. Druid friends tell me that they conceive of the presence candle, or even the Drayton itself, as something similar to Awen. So that might be something that, if that's your way, you can relate to that presence candle in that sense. So there's two other ways that you would be able to relate to the meaning of it as it is to me and to my brothers and sisters. Mystery, the unknowable, that which was before anything else was. Perhaps that from which things came and to which things return. Lots of different ways, including the Awen, to look at what it might be. It is a hinge point for my rituals, both with my coven and privately. The beginning and the end, the acknowledging of the power of mystery. And by the power of mystery, I mean the personal power that every one of us is revealed during our lifetime. Certain aspects of what started out seeming as if it was the unknowable. There's always the vastness of the unknowable. But we explore and we learn and we grow, and the representation of that presence candle is also the us in the mixture, the acknowledgement of what we seek to know, what we are open to learn, to experience, to then take in as our own personal knowledge and knowing. But a very comfortable, respectful, non-stressful acknowledgement that we do not understand it all, we do not have all the answers. It's a reminder going into circle. Because it was never taught that this is what it is, and this is how you will conceive of the Drayton. The Drayton was for each of us to determine. Going back to what Gerald said about little being made of it, we were taught of it. We were taught the ancient Greek roots for the concept of the prime mover. And then we were left to determine on our own what it was. For me in ritual, when I am alone, or when my group is calling on the ancient presence, when my priestess raises this up in ritual, when I raise it up in my solitary practices, it's a deeply intimate, personal moment. Within my circle, it means that I know what it means to me. The rest of what happens in circle, we share. We share our deities, we share our relationship to the guardians and to the elements. As a community within that structure, there are givens we follow. The given to the concept of the Drayton is each one of us does the work to decide what it means for us. What is the vision of the expanded divine, the ultimate expression of creation and life, the source or the return? Whatever it is that we individually relate to. To me, calling presence into circle is an intimate moment. Because what I see this as is not going to be the same as anyone else conceives of it. Because the divine has revealed itself to me over my life in the bits and pieces that are unique to me. Only I know and understand what I have come to know of mystery. I hope that's a little bit of an explanation what it means to me. For the modern practitioner practicing alone, look up concepts like prime mover. Look up the word as I spelled it for you earlier on in this video. Also, sit in your silent moments to imagine what is the vastness, the unknowable thing that you are striving to touch, to put a face to understand in some way. When you are thinking those thoughts, you are honoring the ancient presence. I will leave this video with the version written most likely by Doreen that Patricia shared with us. And I wish you mirth and reverence. In the name of the Drayton, the ancient providence, who was from the beginning and is for eternity, male and female, the original source of all things, all-knowing, all-pervading, all-powerful, changeless, eternal. In the name of the Lady of the Moon and the Lord of Death and Resurrection, in the name of the mighty ones of the four quarters, the kings of the elements, blessed be this place and this time, and they who are now with us.